Of this ride today? Why is this important?
Well, it's not going to change the world, but what Disney does and what Lucasfilm does is try to entertain people in a complicated world. Disneyland is the tentpole of our culture. We experiment here. We create places for people to come and leave behind their cares for a period of time. We concentrate on the quality of what we do, the storytelling of what we do, the marriage of technology and entertainment. And if you're going to spend, George and I started talking about Indiana Jones for Disney almost 11 years ago. The company has been dedicated creatively and technologically to this idea, not only here but in Florida and in Paris, and probably soon in Tokyo. So it's pretty much a worldwide adventure for us. And we think what we do is important enough to let our consumers and customers know about it, because we'd like them to come and enjoy it. So it may not be the most important thing happening in the news for you, but for today it's one of the most important things happening for us.
Hi. I'm Kurt Klein from Channel 31 in Sacramento, and of course with your official opening coming up this weekend, you know, all your competitors have been here to see what you guys have got. Kind of a two-part question. Do you foresee the adventure moving to some of your other parks to have a similar one? And with people expecting more and more, what can you guys do now that the adventure is open to top yourselves next time around? Any ideas?
Well, I think George, he can speak for himself in this area, but every time you do anything, I'm sure after the first Star Wars movie or after American Graffiti or whatever, I'm sure people say, oh my God, you reached the pinnacle of your success, what are you going to do next? And after you said go to Disneyland, you then had to figure it out. We always are trying to exceed our guests' expectations, both in motion pictures and in television, and obviously in theater or here, East on Broadway. I have no idea what we're going to do next. These gentlemen in the front row and under Marty's leadership will hopefully come up with something. Or you have somebody else here in 4 or 5 years trying to answer that same question.
He's talking about me.
As far as the answer about Indiana Jones, the first place we did Indiana Jones was the Disney's version of it, was in the Disney and Jim Studios in Florida. And we probably did, again with George and our guys, the most unique stunt-based show ever done, and still running and very popular. We then, in Paris, in our second year, to create more capacity in a park that really is quite beautiful, did a fairly small but very creative Indiana Jones ride that had a more existing roller coaster technology layered on with the Lucas and Indiana Jones culture. So the only place right now that we don't have Indiana Jones, and we have, by the way, Star Wars and Star Tours at all 4 of our locations, is in Japan. Now, I haven't talked to the Japanese, but I'm pretty sure if they ride this once, they'll be, the phone will be ringing.
Now that you've gotten into rides, CD-ROMs, why go into all these different areas? Do you think when you became a filmmaker, you go into all these areas?
Well, I think, you know, being in the creative field, you look for challenges, and part of the answer for how do you top this. I think if there wasn't a challenge there, most of these guys, like Carole and myself, wouldn't be here. I mean, that's what we do. That's how we have our fun. Is to say, okay, what's the higher mountain? And obviously, the new technologies, the different kinds of entertainment venues are very interesting. You know, I experiment in all kinds of areas, you know, theater and film and television and live shows and interactive multimedia. It's all very interesting to me.
So Lucas, what do you think the correlation between films and video games and what it's all having?
Well, you know, I get asked that a lot. I mean, film is a storytelling medium. Games are an interactive gaming medium. You know, the Olympic Games have been around as long as, you know, performers and telling stories. And they don't, I mean, they're two different things. They use a lot of the similar technology now, and that will begin to get more and more similar. But they're, at their core, very different. One is interactive and the other isn't. And there will always, people always want to have stories told to them, and people always want to participate in games.
George, going on the ride, whet's your appetite for the next trilogy? Where does that stand now? And then would each of you gentlemen tell me why you think the ride is great for kids of all ages?
Which trilogy? We're working on a new Indiana Jones film, and we're also working on 3 new Star Wars films. And that's been in process for about a year now, and it'll be another 2 or 3 years before we're finished. It doesn't take 7 years. It does make something like this, but it does take a considerable amount of time to get it done.
Mr. Eisner?
I'm working on it.
And kids of all ages?
We had one question here about kids of all ages. This is not a ride for kids of all ages. There's a height restriction because it does move around pretty quickly and goes around corners pretty quickly, that we want to make sure that children were large enough to be in a seat belt that would hold them. So although 95% of our rides, everybody in the family can go on. The few rides that we have that are more aggressive in the thrill area, we do have a height restriction. And we'll manage that very carefully.
Mr. Eisner? Gary Franklin.
Hi, Gary.
Hi. Does the bankruptcy of Orange County have any adverse effects on business? That's not funny. It's a legitimate question.
I would say, in an indirect way, clearly. I mean, and the trickle-down effect of a bankruptcy of a county has got to affect the people who live in the county, people that are on the county payroll, eventually, one way or another. So, any depressed economic situation, particularly in the area in which you operate, has to affect your business. Plus, I think we have a lot of cast members that live in Orange County, and that, like when you have an earthquake, it affects your cast.
What about services like police and fire?
I am not an expert in really answering that. I don't think that we have had to date any changes in our services, and I don't read that those services are in jeopardy. Again, I'm not a politician, and I don't know the ins and outs of that, but certainly we would be much happier to have that not happen.
Mr. Eisner, I'm Marla Fisher with the Orange County Register. Do you have any idea do you have projections about how many more heads are going to be coming through the gates now that you new ride,
How many more people are coming because of the Indiana Jones ride?
How much?
I hope significant. It's a very complicated reason for what we're doing. One, you want to keep the quality of the park up. You want to keep it contemporary. You don't want it to age. You want people to still think, in my kid's vernacular, that it's cool. On another level, you want to, if you're going to invest the kind of investment that we are investing in our parks, which most companies would invest in other acquisitions of other companies, you would hope that it would bring in incremental, what we call incremental attendance to what we have in any event. Sometimes that works, and sometimes it just enhances the park. I am pretty confident that that this attraction is going to be a monstrously successful attraction as far as incremental attendance. As a matter of fact, I'm afraid in the first year that we put up signs that say when you get an hour, and hopefully people come up and see an hour wait and say, maybe I'll come back. But to have 2 and 3 hour waits on occasion on a new ride, is I would prefer not to have. I prefer everybody able to go on the ride. But I think this is going to be one of those attractions that has that kind of heat on it.
Yeah, there were 2 developments.
If I had a contract here, I would like to make it.
The next Indiana Jones film, we have a draft on a script. Harrison, Stephen are reading it, and rewrite some things, and then we have to figure out a time when all of our schedules sort of mesh, and we can all do it. I think that's the hardest part now, because everybody's very successful, and it's hard to get us all in the same place at the same time. But it should happen at some point here in the future. I was going to say near, but I said Lucasfilm is a small company. We're sort of a boutique film company. We don't do a lot of movies, so there's always that possibility that we may be able to do something with Disney at some point.
You mentioned that you implemented the Indiana Jones rides in Euro Disney and had plans, of course, for the other Disney to increase capacity. Did that work? And if you could just tell me what the plans are for Euro Disney in the future.
I probably got into an area that was overly complicated, but if you have, let's say, 50,000 people in the park, and you have an ideal of not having more than a 20-minute wait on average on rides, you have to have enough rides to make sure that to maintain that goal of 20 minutes. So when we opened Euro Disney, the first summer we had so many people that our lines were longer than what we think is right for the guest experience. So we added about 5 or 6 things in anticipation of this May's opening of a new Space Mountain. And one of the things we added was an Indiana Jones attraction, which was not on the original menu. The original menu was to wait and see how this attraction did, and then bring this attraction to Euro Disney or to Disneyland Paris. But that would have been a 5 or 6 year wait. And we're all getting older and very impatient. So actually George calls up and says, I hear you're going to do something else. How about Indiana Jones? And we said, great. So it was kind of, let's get at it. We've been waiting too long on Indiana Jones.
We have about 5 minutes left. This lady here.
Okay, Mr. Eisner, I heard there were rumors about Tomorrowland, and I was wondering if you could just comment on what you have in store for that, because I imagine it needs revamping, and I wonder if there was going to be a star theme continued, or what the next galaxy would be.
Well, we have noticed that Tomorrowland could use revamp. And it is, as has just been completed in Florida on Tomorrowland, we are in development. We have it pretty well organized, and I don't know if we announced when we announced when the new Tomorrowland. In 1998, we will have a new Tomorrowland, and it has a lot of very exciting elements to it. Star Wars, Star Tours will remain in, just to put that away, will remain in the new Disneyland. It is possible that we will change out in Star Tours the software to coincide with whatever new culture, new characters George comes up with in his trilogy. And maybe we'll even distribute the films if we're lucky. But if not the films, at least the ride.
Mr. Lucas, your technology that you have developed with your company island, do you think we'll ever see a crossover of what's already done or what you have in the future to maybe an attraction here? Or what we see today, can some of that be seen in the way movies are made now?
Well, it's complicated. In the larger picture, digital technology is rampant in this ride, and as it is in Star Wars. And I think a lot of the rides now, I mean, Disney, right from the get-go, has had used a lot of computers in their facilities here. But just as in the film business, the advancing digital technology has really altered the way we think about what we do, not only in the film part of it, but also in the ride part of it. You have a lot more freedom and have a lot more room to make creative decisions that just weren't possible before. And that, I think, is going to improve everything in the entertainment.
This lady right here.
Mr. Lucas, here. Lieutenant of the Division of Archaeology, Francesca Francella. I'd like to ask you, books and university paper has been written about Indiana Jones and about the fact that he represents a new kind of hero, someone who wouldn't hesitate to shoot his enemy who's struggling with a blade. So I would like to know, do you think that this is a secret for Indiana Jones' success, or the secret is just that it's a good adventure movie?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons why the film is successful and why the character works. I think one of the keys to the character is that he is sort of an everyman. He confronts extraordinary problems just like we all do. And he's no superhero. He's just a regular guy. And he somehow miraculously manages to, through some clever trick, get out of the messes. And sometimes it's through his own stumbling and fumbling that he manages to rescue himself. But he's always in a little bit over his head, and I think people like that because I think most people feel sometimes a little bit over their head.
Mr. Lucas and Mr. Eisner, Holly McClure from the Orange County Register. I'd just like to ask, I review movies for children, and so my concern is on the children. I see that they are growing up in a technological and visual effects era and age. Is it hard to, what are we going to be creating in the future for theme parks to saturate their appetites? Is it getting harder and harder to match, their appetite for the unusual? And what will that be in the future for theme parks?
Well, that's about a 4-hour conversation, which I have no idea what the answer is. We go from Toontown to Indiana Jones to Snow White to Beauty and the Beast to Lion King Parade. We hope that we capture the attention in a positive way of the whole family, including children. And on one hand, you don't want to threaten them. You also don't want to bore them. It's a complicated, almost intellectual process to answer that. We do think of those kinds of things, and if we knew the answer, we'd be way ahead of our competition and everybody else. We just kind of groping along trying to figure out that answer.
We're really thrilled to be here today. Indiana Jones attraction is a collaboration between George and Walt Disney Engineering. We've been talking about this and working on it for a little over a decade. And to have it completed and have the kind of reaction that I think we're getting is very gratifying for both of us. We have had in both of our companies, and separately together, we have had the honor of having Bruce Susan do poster work, not only for George and Star Wars, but Indiana Jones, for Disney and Princess Beauty and the Beast. And he has been so gracious as to work on the Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Forbidden Eye poster. I have that correctly, I think I got it out correctly. So I think without making too much of this, unless you want to express how happy you are to work for our company.
That would be true. I think anybody in the world would be happy to work with you. In particular, it's a pleasure after all the years. We're going to do a centerpiece of